Will the keeper of the flame please bring forward the Christ candle? Namaste.
Good morning, beloved of God. Right where you are at this moment, the light of Spirit shines through you. Infinitely loved by God, you are the light of the world. I'm Bernie, and I welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center this morning. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. Please stand as you are able and join us in the congregational singing.
This is the day that the Lord has made, Let us rejoice and be glad in it, This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. This is the day that the Lord has made, We will rejoice and be glad in it, This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Let us say together our statement of truth, which is on the screen. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. We are a beacon of love and light for those who need this spiritual home right now. Let us say together our vision, mission, and core value for today. Our vision: to awaken an awareness of spirit in our lives through modern application of ancient wisdom. Our mission: raise consciousness, transform lives, heal the planet, one person at a time, beginning with me. Okay, our core value for today is gratitude. I'll say it, and then if we could all say it together. We appreciate and celebrate the fullness of life that flows to us through God, our instant, constant, and abundant source. Now, Peggy will read the daily word. Mm-hmm.
Oh, here it is. Let's see. The daily word for today, October 30th, is protection. Once in a while, I enjoy doing things that frighten me, sharing ghost stories around a campfire, watching a spooky movie, even savoring the uneasy feeling just before thundering down the first hill of a roller coaster. All these things can feel scary, even though I know I'm in no real danger. If I begin to feel unsafe in any situation, I remember that right where I am, God is. Breathing out, I release tension. My body relaxes. Fearful thoughts begin to dissolve. Breathing in, I think more clearly. Slowly, I regain the renewed strength and peace of mind. My confidence returns as I remember that nothing in the world can prevail against the strength, the wisdom, and the love of God. And from Psalms 23:4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And our affirmation for today, which I'll say and then we'll all say together. God is here. I am safe. God is here. I am safe.
And Bernie and Lucinda. And this is the time in our service when we have an opportunity to get up and to greet one another with a handshake or a hug. If you're not a hugger, just put your hand out and make sure that somebody shakes it. So let's take a few moments now to greet one another. Since you're seated, you may as well stay seated for our next congregational song. I think my mic needs to come down a little bit.
May you rejoice in the new life within you as you release the old and worn. Open your heart with praise and thanksgiving. May you see God. May you awake to a world of beauty, lifted up from times of tears, aware of the grace that tenderly carries you. May you see God.
Good morning to each of you again. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center of Waco today. Together we affirm and celebrate our unity, our oneness with each other, our oneness with all that is, and our oneness in God. Your presence is essential, for each of us is a unique aspect of the energy that expresses as Unity Spiritual Center of Waco right here and right now. And we know that none of us is here by accident or coincidence. As we remind you each week, unity is a new thought denomination, yet new thought is nothing new to the world. It is in reality a synthesis of the greatest concepts from the minds and spirits of humankind across the ages. The laws of Moses, the love of Christ, the ethics of Buddha, the morals of Confucius, the 5 pillars of Islam, and the deep spiritual realization of the Hindus all find an exalted place in the philosophy of unity. In unity, we believe that all people are created with sacred worth, regardless of culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or creed. And we know that neither God nor unity leave anyone out. So let us join together now in a time of prayer. As we breathe and turn inward, we say, Eternal Presence, Spirit of light, love, wisdom, and joy. As we come together this morning, we are filled with gratitude for our very lives, for the lives of those whom we love, and all people in the world. How grateful we are for the many ways in which our lives are abundantly blessed. As we came here this morning, we began to notice a change in the weather, a little bit of change in the color of the leaves. And we know that there is always change, and the one changeless thing in our entire universe is your presence. All flows from you, moves outward, evolves just as it should in divine order. We hold in our hearts all the people in our congregation who are experiencing any health challenges, and we affirm that healing is taking place right here and right now. Healing in its many forms. And we hold others, all the world, in prayer, seeing each person healed, whole, filled with your presence, supported, comforted, and filled with divine love. And we see the answer to prayer unfolding right here and right now through your presence within each person. We allow ourselves to envision with great passion, great commitment, the leaders of our country and all countries of the world, being inspired by your divine presence within them, to come together in a spirit of harmony, cooperation, so that there may be peace and harmony and prosperity for all across our planet. For we know that your divine will for us is our highest good for all people everywhere. We remember that it is written that when the disciples said, Lord, how should we pray? Then Jesus said to them, pray like this. And together we say the Lord's Prayer as translated from the Aramaic, which is on the screen. Infinite presence, which is everywhere, your name is sacred. Your kingdom is come. Your will is throughout the earth, even as it is throughout the universe. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and you forgive our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. You let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error, because yours are the kingdom, the power, the song, and the praise, from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Each of us is the light and love of God, spiritual beings having a human experience. You are God's beloved, and we embrace you today. To envision our own children, the children from our congregation, and all children in the world. And we're going to put our hands together, create some nice warm energy, and hold them up and envision the children of the world and say, children of the world, we love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are.
I first came across it, and it's Sue Riley. What? Shocking. Years ago, and I never thought much of it. And then I really listened to it. And it's a wonderful song about, well, it's called Blessed by the Rain. And, you know, it's just basically, I think, going to match up very well with what Margot is going to talk about today. And that is, at the time that things happen, they may not seem to be good, but for, whatever reason, when we step back and we look at the bigger picture, we understand that it's put us in a different place, in a place that we never would have found. And it ends up, it's where we need to be. And we had this rain all weekend, and it was lovely. And I heard people complaining about it, and I thought, oh, no. My passion flowers thought it was spring again. They're starting to bloom. And so I thought this was just the best song. I love it so much. And so I'm so excited to sing it for you today.
Well, and when you finish singing, since you're doing such a good job, could you come up?
Yeah, when I'm done, just everybody go home. It's fine. I'm ready. Hit it, maestro. Ooh, it's raining. Sometimes hidden inside tears and pain, I was led to a path I would never have found if those blessings had felt less like rain. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. Each drop opportunities claimed, though at times you feel lost, lost and afraid. Open your heart to be blessed by the rain. when your world is falling around you, when your eyes never lift from the ground, when you've been forced down a road you've not chosen, toward the future of your dreams. Stand aside and gather your blessings. Choose a life that is bursting with joy, and you'll stand there amazed at your wonderful life and realize you've been blessed by the rain. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. Each drop opportunities claimed, though at times you feel lost, lost and afraid. Realize you've been blessed by the rain. Let it rain, let it rain. Each drop opportunities claimed, though at times you feel lost and afraid. Realize you've been blessed by the rain. Realize you've been blessed by the rain.
Lucinda, I just don't know how you manage to do it, but it seems like every week somehow you are able to find just the right music to go with the topic of my message. And it's just amazing, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you so, so much. So you may have noticed that the title of today's message is Step Back and Be Amazed. One of my, excuse me, very favorite places to spend time in the Dallas area is at the Arboretum. One could spend hours there, probably even days, and not see all there is. And each season, they change the plants, tulips in the spring, mums in the fall, and so much more. However, there is one very special place in the Arboretum that draws me to it. It's called the Infinity Pool. And as you see it from a distance, it appears to be part of White Rock Lake. A picture of it was on our slide, our title slide this morning, and I have it in another slide for you to see now on the screen. As you look at it, doesn't it look like it's part of, it's just flowing into White Rock Lake? But if you view it up close, and I think on the next slide, if you view it up close, you don't get that effect at all. So in order to get the full effect of the infinity pool, you have to view it at a distance, to step back and be amazed. And there it is again. It's really amazing, and I really, really love that place. sometimes in order to get a clearer a view, we do have to step backward, which reminds me of a not so great experience that happened when I was about 8 years old. Our property at Lake Nagawicca in Wisconsin had marshy bogs on either side, and you could walk out there, and one of our neighbors had actually had attached a raft out there with a bench, and sometimes I enjoyed just walking out there and sitting on the bench in the sunlight and watching the fish in the lake. But that whole area was, I mean, the water and everything was really yucky and smelly and everything, so you couldn't swim there. So we had a raft about 100 yards out where you could go and we can swim out there. But one Sunday we were expecting company at our house, and I was all dressed up in my pink dress, and of course I was impatient as always. Can we stop for a minute? I'm feeling like I'm getting some sounds, extra sounds. Is that better? Can you all hear now? Okay, that's good, thank you. So I didn't want to wait for the company in the house, so I walked out to the raft to wait their arrival. I couldn't quite view the house to see if the people arrived, so I stepped backwards a few steps to get a better view, and I'm on my tiptoes, and all of a sudden I took one step too many, and I wound up in the smelly water. And it was nasty and awful, and of course it ruined my pretty pink dress. As you can imagine, my mother was not thrilled. She was livid, as a matter of fact, and she had to get me bathed and shampooed and changed before the company arrived. I kind of don't remember what happened after that, but I'm guessing it wasn't super pleasant. Although it didn't have a desirable outcome, I did learn something from that experience, that sometimes we have to step back to see more clearly. And isn't that how it is with our own lives? Don't we really have a clear understanding of the significance of an event sometimes until we're able to get some distance in the form of time? Often as an event unfolds, we find ourselves bewildered about the circumstances, and there seems nothing good about the situation. Yet perhaps there are other times when something truly wonderful is unfolding right before our eyes, and it isn't until much later through the distance of time that we realize how precious that occurrence was. Most of the time we have a tendency to judge a situation by its apparent merit at the time, calling it good or bad based on the way it's affecting our lives at that very moment. It's hard not to do that, but perhaps this story might help us understand another way of evaluating events. There's a story that the Taoists tell of an old farmer who had worked his crops for many years. And one day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, the neighbor came to visit and said, "Such bad luck," they said sympathetically. "Maybe," the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. "How wonderful!" the neighbors exclaimed. "Maybe," replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors once again came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. "Maybe," answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft the young man into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. Now, in that particular story, there isn't much time between events, the so-called bad ones and the seeming good ones. Yet we can still understand that if we're willing, we can often hold off judgment, step back, and be amazed at the good that came out of even as a result of a situation that seemed dire at the time. This is also true of what seems to be good at the time, but may eventually turn out to be not so good. My son loves his Harley, and some years ago, he was offered a job at a Harley-Davidson dealership near his home. It seemed to be an ideal situation with good benefits and opportunity to make good money and be around Harleys. However, within 2 months, he realized that it would be nearly impossible to make a decent living, so he had to let go of that job. I'm guessing each of us has had similar experiences, finding out that what seemed just perfect at the time didn't pan out quite the way we expected it to. But perhaps more often it works the other way. We may be blindsided by an event in our lives and can't imagine how we'll ever get beyond it. When we're going through a rough time, we wonder if it will ever end. Mostly it does. But what about the rest of the time? Do you ever step back and look at how you got where you are at this very moment? Change one thing in your life, and you could be somewhere else or even someone else. Think about what had to come together for this moment to be just as it is right now. If some of the seemingly bad moments in your life hadn't happened, would you still be the same person and be where you are in your life right now? Case in point, when the new president at the college decided to eliminate my job, I was terrified. I was 59 years old and wondering how I was going to support myself. Where could I work? Who would hire me? And this came on the heels just after 2 years of a devastating divorce that left me wondering how I could possibly go on and or find any meaning in life. The divorce turned out to be the impetus behind finding the Unity Church of Dallas, taking classes, becoming a board member, and ultimately being called to ministry. And had the divorce not occurred, I would not have been fortunate enough to reconnect with Ed, who had been my boss in an earlier life, and then I married him. Further, had my job at the college not been eliminated, I might not have thought about ministry, but would have been too secure and comfortable to consider it seriously. Might have thought about it, but not seriously. Actually, my way was made clear to pursue ordination as a Unity minister at just the right time and under the right set of circumstances. I wonder how many times each of us has encountered a situation that we thought was so negative as to be life-altering, only to find out that it was, in fact, life-altering, but in truly magnificent ways, ways that we could never have anticipated or imagined. It reminds me of the story about Joseph in the Bible. You may remember he was the favorite son of Jacob from his wife, Rachel. His brothers were really jealous of Joseph, especially since they knew that he was the favored son. And he also seemed to lord it over them in numerous ways, including predicting that he would one day rule over them. So they sold him into slavery to a man who was on his way to Egypt and told their father that a wild animal had killed him. A really bad situation for Joseph. Maybe. In Egypt, he gets hired by Pharaoh's wife and lived in a plush environment, a really good situation for Joseph. Maybe. But she accused him of rape when he refused her advances, and he's thrown in jail. Really bad for Joseph. Maybe. While he was in jail, he began to interpret the dreams of his jailmates, which quite accurately predicted future events in their lives. And so word got out to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh asked Joseph to interpret his dream. The dream predicted a famine in Egypt, and Joseph tells Pharaoh what to do to avert the famine. He is then made Pharaoh's right-hand man. Later, Joseph's brothers come to Egypt because they're suffering from a famine in Canaan, where they're currently living. And Joseph recognizes them immediately, but they don't recognize him. Through a series of events, they ultimately come to know who Joseph is. And this is what happens next. This is written in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verses 16 through 21. So they approached Joseph, saying, "Your father gave this instruction before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you, forgive the crime of your brothers and the wrong they did in harming you. Now therefore, please forgive the crime of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also wept, fell down before him, and said, "We are here as your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good, in order to preserve a numerous people as he is doing today. So have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones." In this way he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. "Even though you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." What do we understand from that passage? Did it really happen exactly that way? Do we really know? Is it a metaphor? Whatever, but what can we understand from that passage? Again, if we look at Joseph's story, which I have greatly condensed, obviously, you see that things were wonderful for him, and then life turned upside down. It got better, and then more awful stuff happened. It did turn around, so his life was again bountiful. But Joseph is able to step back and be amazed. As a result of everything that happened, ultimately, famines were averted and people's lives were saved. What if Joseph's brothers had not devised and hatched a plan to get rid of him? What if they had all remained in Canaan? Well, obviously we don't really know, but we know that according to the story, because of the exact sequence of events, there was a magnificent outcome for Joseph and for his brothers and multitudes of people. If you read between the lines of that story, you also understand that it was Joseph's attitude through all of the events, the ups and downs of life, that made the difference. A few years ago, we studied Eric Butterworth's book, In the Flow of Life, in one of our classes. He could have been referring to Joseph's life, although he wasn't, when he wrote this passage. There may be experiences in your life that you may have thought of as serving time, but in every case, it is the attitude that counts, the way in which you view the experience. In that same book, one of the chapters entitled Life Comes to Pass, Butterworth tells us he had an epiphany when he read in Luke, and it came to pass. From that, he understands that whatever happens in our life, it has no permanence. It came to pass. In the King James Version of the Bible, that expression, it came to pass, is found 396 times. Butterworth states it's good to look back and appreciate the blessings that have come into your life. A little nostalgia never hurt anyone. The danger is that we may become so fond of riding in the observation car that you never see where you're going, only where you have been. But today I'm inviting you to see where you have been, not to get stuck there, but to look at the events in your life that seemed dire at the time, but not only came to pass, but allowed something wonderful to unfold that might not otherwise have been. Both heartache and joy come to pass. So I invite you to look at the wonderful moments in your life that also came to pass, and yet with time and distance, you can see more clearly their beauty and the significance they played in your life. I truly believe that it is oftentimes from the distance that allows us to view from a clearer perspective and with a deeper meaning. I offer you one more example as a gift of distance. On the screen, we see a close-up of a pine branch. Not bad, sort of interesting. But on the next slide, we can look at that from a distance. And we can step back and be amazed. So let's take those thoughts now into a time of meditation. As always, I invite you to become comfortable where you are seated, to allow the chair to support you as a metaphor for the way in which we are always totally supported by the presence of God, God's presence within. I invite you to take in a deep, cleansing breath. And on that exhaled breath, allow anything that's weighing heavily on your mind or in your heart to simply flow out on that breath and to turn in to experience the place within you where you feel the presence of God, remembering that it is in God that we live and move and have our being. And so for the next few moments, I invite you to allow my words to be your words. Gentle Spirit, as I breathe, I remember that I am alive, that your life permeates every cell in my body. I am just as Moses learned when he asked the burning bush, what is the name I should tell people of the God I experienced? And you said, I am that I am. I realize that I am an expression of your divine presence with all of the attributes of love and joy and wisdom that are already present within me through your presence. I know that whatever happens in my life may seem disastrous at the time, may cause me great pain and suffering, fear, anxiety, uncertainty. And yet I try to remember that this has come to pass, and I know there is something better beyond, something better than what I am experiencing at that moment. How grateful I am to have had experiences that show me that with time I am able to appreciate even little subtle aspects of an event that seemed disastrous at the time. How grateful I am for your presence that reminds me that I have the power within me to recognize the gifts of the moment, the gifts of the past, and the gifts awaiting me beyond today. And so for the next few moments, I allow myself to just sit and be quiet and to feel your presence, give thanks for the many ways in which I have experienced the joy, the love, the wisdom that came from the myriad circumstances in my life. I do that now in a few moments of silence. And now as we prepare to bring our awareness back to this time and this place, we remember that we can always take a moment to turn within, to give thanks, to be amazed at the blessings that have filled our lives from the beginning of time until this very moment. And for this we are grateful. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen.
If you are here for the first time, you have received a packet of information about unity. or will, and about our church. Please know we welcome and bless you. We invite you to join us for coffee, snacks, and conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. Please fill out the form on the back of the envelope and return it to Reverend Margot. This is the time in our service where we have an opportunity to give back to the work of Spirit through our offerings and our tithes. We give in love and gratitude for our own prosperity in its many forms, which come to us through God, our instant, constant, and abundant source. If today is your first visit, we would like to honor and acknowledge that you are a blessing to us and that your presence here today is your gift to this ministry. You are not expected to participate in the offering. Would the ushers please come forward? I invite you to hold your offering in your hand as we say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all of the good I am and have, and all of the good I receive, and I am grateful.
Will the ushers please come forward again so we can bless these offerings? Can you see the screen?
As the
Before we circle up, I want to make sure that we have welcomed and included everybody who has joined us on live stream this morning. We are so happy to have you with us, and we hope that you have been blessed by this service. So are we ready to circle up now? So let's just take a moment now to look around this circle at all of these beautiful faces, remembering that each one is an expression of God's divine presence. What an awesome understanding that is. So each person is blessed and a blessing. So let us say together our prosperity affirmation, which is on the screen. We affirm the continued growth and prosperity of Unity Spiritual Center of Waco, and we are grateful. And our prayer for protection of the light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Go forth today, we give thanks for the blessings that have been, the blessings that are now, and the blessings that are yet to come. And we say thank you, God. Let the church say amen. Amen.